more. Widesight TV.
So, Will, first of all, what's the Crown Estate's role in the coordination of offshore activities?
So, as the Crown Estate, we manage quite a few activities on the seabed. We provide the formal rights for development, so for investors to come in and build projects, infrastructure, offshore wind, typically. And what we do in that regard is providing that route to market, if you like, for projects and investments. But we also step back and think about how the seabed is used otherwise. Those things we don't manage, things like, topically for what I'm here at the conference talking today about the interaction with radar, how offshore wind works with radar. Same thing around the environment, other uses of the seabed, be that fisheries and navigation. It's really important that we have a role in sort of how we plan our activities in cognizant of what else is going on the seabed and in the environment.
I see, and I know that you're going to be speaking about the air defence project. Why has the Crown Estate chosen to invest in the air defence project?
Yeah, it's a really specific point there that the interaction with radar is something that at the moment is a bit of a barrier to deployment. At the moment, a lot of technical work needs to go and understand how the spinning turbines can coexist with the primary surveillance radar that the MOD manage. So we've got to come up as an industry with solutions to that. How can we coexist? And I think that's a really key theme. How do we coexist with environment? How do we coexist with radar and navigation? Now, the specific point, as an independent commercial business, we invest in unlocking some of these issues. And in this regard, we came forward with industry, which is with the Offshore Wind Industry Council, on the back of the sector deal that was done with government. This is one of those actions that really needed to be tackled in a very holistic way. And we've invested on the back of the fact that we were going to be going into round 4, the next big leasing round back then, and we could see the fact that the seabed we were interested in was affected by this issue as well. So essentially we came in early, before the round 4 projects are understood and known about, and play our part to be part of that strategic solutionising for this issue.
Okay, so tell me, so that's obviously a long-term project that started a couple of years ago. What progress would you say has been made since then?
Yeah, it's an excellent one. It's an innovation-based project. There's various reasons why I can't go into detail, and because it's a Ministry of Defence project. But safe to say, the whole idea is to get in there and trialling software, hardware, actually getting into the point of what kit could be deployed in the future to help unlock this issue. So it's not just about sat in a room talking, and there's been some good stuff in that. The really good stuff. This programme's come together with representatives across government, industry, ourselves as Crown Estate, to really sit down against a common risk register and come together to work the issue. And from our point of view, we're investing as making sure some of this issue is worked ahead of time for some of the round 4 projects that will come through later.
I see, and you mentioned a few different stakeholders there. You mentioned the Ministry of Defence, you mentioned government. This feels like a kind of a really strong collaborative piece across industry and beyond. Tell me about some of the kind of the stakeholder work that you're doing to pull everyone together.
Yeah, it goes back to something. The core investment, if you like, in the radar project comes from another programme which we launched last year called the Offshore Wind Evidence and Change Programme. And again, on the theme of what I've just talked about, trying to get ahead of the issues so that we don't fix them project by project. And the Evidence and Change Programme is we put some sort of kickstart funding into that, £25 million last year, and we sit with the 27 key organisations that get involved with deployment of offshore wind, be that government departments, the regulators, and the industry themselves, and ourselves. We sort of get in a room and really talk about how we're going to tackle these issues. And in the future, we'll be looking at things like navigation, fisheries, but there's a lot of work going on about the general environment evidence base, something that Isabelle will be talking to in a minute, but getting that data and evidence so that we can unlock understanding, so then we can manage these issues well with a good knowledge and understanding. And although the industry's been running for sort of 15 plus years, it's only by collecting data as we go can we really use that to increase our knowledge and then really understand how we can mitigate some of the issues that we face as we build out this industry.
And you mentioned there learning and sort of getting more information. What do we not know enough about?
It's a really interesting. We're 15 years at it. UK we've got the world leading fleet of offshore wind. There's 10 gigawatts of operating capacity, so that's about 10% of supply. In fact, last year we were up to about 13% of the domestic supply in the UK. So a great success story, but the plan is, if you look at the Committee on Climate Change scenarios, to actually increase that by tenfold. So as we keep going into new areas of water, we're going to have to really keep learning. As we're getting up to the world where we're hitting our head up against what we think is to be the understandable, acceptable headroom on impact on the environment, we've got to really keep getting ahead of that knowledge to understand really what are the ways we're going to mitigate our impacts, and how do we sort of get ahead of these issues. So things like the Evidence and Change Programme are looking at that in a more holistic way, the cumulative impact of that build out, and then putting things into meaningful projects like the radar project is how you really start to unlock it.
I see. So a lot of learning going on. What can we apply from this activity to help us tackle other challenges?
Yeah, I think the key thing for me, other than kind of getting on and taking action and doing things that drive us that understanding and give us solutions, is the way in which it's really truly drawn together. It's one of the forerunning programs that really, where government, departments, the industry and other stakeholders like ourselves have got into the room and really planned it. So innovation is around innovation of digital and innovation of kit, but this is innovation of process, I would argue, where we're really coming together and really getting to the nuts and bolts of this with two very different activities, the MOD's surveillance and the MOD work they do to protect our nation, really understanding why offshore wind has to operate in a certain way. And it's only by sitting around the same table and really getting into the detail of these things do people start to understand, okay, now I understand it. And we start creating solutions together rather than in disparate forms otherwise.
Fantastic, thank you. I'm going to come to you now, Isabelle.
So I started almost 3 years ago now as a marine data research intern at the Crown Estate. And my focus there was really working with the data on the Crown Estate's Marine Data Exchange. So that's a system that was set up in 2013 by the Crown Estate to manage, store and ultimately share publicly the data that offshore wind farm developers collect throughout the lifetime of a project, so right through from pre-consenting right through to decommissioning. So it's a really exciting database, but there's so much there that sometimes it's difficult for people to find what they're looking for and really get the most value out of the data. So that my role there was focused on that.
That's really interesting. You mentioned the word data several times there, so I'm guessing data is quite close to your heart. But in this context, how does data help us to sort of holistically manage the seabed?
So, as Will's really talked to, the seabed is an increasingly busy place, and in order to get a clear picture of perhaps the areas of key marine resource for certain sectors and even environmentally important areas and habitats, it's a really key way that we can use spatial data to bring information about all the different marine activities together to give us a clear picture of how we can make decisions on the seabed.
So I know you're involved in the Marine Data Exchange that the Crown Estate hosts. Tell me how that helps to tackle some of those key sort of consenting and planning issues.
Yeah, so the Marine Data Exchange is such a vast resource of data that we can pull together. I think Will's already touched on this a little already, but we can pull together disparate data sets from these different projects to build a bigger picture about what's going on in the seabed in all sorts of categories, be they environmental, geological, all sorts of different categories, and really use that evidence to inform decision making in marine planning.
It's free access as well, so it can be used by anyone. It can be used from the point of view of developers who want to invest in the seabed in the future. Maybe they're fortunate that we've done some surveys on the same area they're interested, but if not, there's still the availability of data and how that data can be used, can be applied, right the way through to research. And so universities or people at right at the front end of starting to unlock the problems we're going to face on the ground in the next sort of 10, 15 years. So the free access of that data to be used by anyone who's got an interest is really key. We in the end don't probably know how it's always going to be used. There's a business case and that's why we support it. but then we keep getting surprised in terms of how that data can really be turned to solve problems in the future. And it's having that free access of data is the really important thing. And then the quality. A lot of the work that Isabelle and the team do go to make sure that data is accessible, but also is of a good quality. It's gone through the QA check, so it's usable. And all the work that we're investing in now and the projects we're doing now is to try and make that more discoverable. So we've got a massive repository. It's then to turn it into an intelligent tool, so if someone's looking for something, how do they find it? So we're always continuing improving how to get that access sorted out.
How do you make it discoverable? How do people discover it?
So we've done actually a lot of work recently in launching a new website for the Marine Data Exchange, which is the public-facing website. And on there you can see very clearly through infographics the categories of data that are available, but also which areas those data are available in, and other factors like the methodology that was used to collect that data if perhaps you're interested in a specific type of data set. So there's a myriad of different factors that people can search by, but it's a really exciting improvement that we've got now.
Energy. Energy. Marine. Energy. Power. Widesite TV.